Welcome to Forum 360. This is Leslie Ungar, your host today. Thank you for joining us for a Zoom edition to our global outlook with a local view. Everyone loves their dog. And if you're like me, you think your dog is the cutest or the smartest or the tallest or the biggest or the shortest or the hairiest dog ever to exist in the Western world. Today, we're going to find out what actually makes a dog best in show. Our guest today, Elizabeth Zalewski, and her two dogs, her St. Bernard Sandy and her Cane Corso Crom, will take us behind the scenes to one of the most famous dog shows in the world, the Westminster Dog Show. She's going to tell us what really happens in the pampering and the competition with man's best friend. Welcome to our human guest, Elizabeth, and her two four-legged stars, Sandy and Crom. We welcome you.
Hi.
When the average dog owner thinks of a dog show, I think that they usually think of obedience. But tell us about the categories in a dog show, because I'm pretty sure obedience isn't one of them.
Actually, obedience is one of them. However, what I do is, it's called confirmation. It's a dog shows that you see on TV. Each dog has a standard that is written for them, and the dog shows compete the dogs that the judges judge versus their own written standard. So that is what the confirmation dog shows are.
So do they need to know any obedience, or just be able to walk around the ring with you?
Actually, it's there's a little more into it than obedience. Obedience is sit down, stay, come, heel, all that. I actually have nothing to do with obedience. I probably couldn't make any of my dogs sit and stay if I wanted to. What my job to do is make the dogs look the best they can, and that is make them have their presence about them in the ring. They just need to stand there for the judge to be able to come over to examine them. And they look them head to toe. So they start with their head, they look at their teeth, their ears, their chest, they go down their body all the way to their rear. And the dog just needs to stand there so the judge can evaluate the dog, and it's almost like a model contest.
But is that hard? I mean, even models say that it's harder work than we think. Is it hard to teach a dog to stand when there might be hundreds or thousands of people in the stands and judges putting their hands on them?
At the beginning, it can be, and that is why it is so important to, no matter what you're doing with a puppy, is that you get them out when they're young and socialize them so they are used to having different things around them in the environment. People, sounds, weather, crowds, noises. So when you're starting them out at the shows, usually we use food as motivation. As long as they are food motivated, it's pretty easy. They learn that if they stand there and they're doing what they're supposed to do, they get rewarded with a treat. So as long as you're starting them young and socializing them, it really shouldn't be a problem.
So tell us, you have Sandy with the little apron, the St. Bernard. Tell us what makes a St. Bernard a good St. Bernard in the breed.
Absolutely. So the St. Bernard, per its written standard, they are supposed to be a tall, powerful, imposing figure. One of the most important things on the dog is their heads. These dogs are made to move through mountains to rescue people in the snow. They derive from the Swiss Alps. There are two versions. There's a long hair and a short hair. She is a long hair. That's why she's in beautiful coat right now, by the way. She's got beautiful coat right now. And there's a short hair. The short hair version, those are the ones that would do the work in the mountains. When they developed this long coated part of the St. Bernard, they found out that they can't really do the work in the mountains because it gets so cold, and if they get wet, they can freeze faster. The icicles weigh them down in the water. So the first thing is that I look at this dog. Can this dog rescue me in the snow if I am trapped? So that's what a judge would come up with. What is this dog's purpose, and can they do their job? So when you look at Sandy, Sandy's a very powerful, what we call her, dogs are dogs and female dogs are bitches. She's a very powerful figure. She's got heavy substance and bone and structure that she can get through and plow her way through something to get somewhere.
So is it just myth, or are they still used in that capacity in some parts of the world?
It's not a myth. They are still out there. There are still St. Bernards out doing their jobs. The confirmation shows we go beyond America. We're a part of the American Kennel Club, but every country has their, confirmation outlets. And we have people that go and travel out to the Swiss Alps and actually visit some of the dogs that still work out there.
Now, tell us about Crom. I think that to a lot of people, even to me, sometimes their face looks like Darth Vader. It looks like they're actually wearing a mask. But tell us a little bit about the breed and what makes a good Corso a good Corso.
Yes. So a Cane Corso is actually an Italian Mastiff. So Cane Corso is not something you're used to hearing. They're pretty new to AKC. They came in the late 2000s. Crom in particular, he actually won the breed at Westminster in 2015. And he was ranked in the top of his breed during that time. He's 7.5 now, so he's getting up there. For him, the same thing as Sandy is powerful and imposing, except this is a guardian breed. And this breed, we want them to almost look like a bouncer at a bar, that they are tough and imposing, they can do a job, but they're still friendly and cordial, but they can protect if they need to.
Now, tell us, before I ask you more about the breeds, I know from showing horses that the horses had a barn name and then they had their registered name. So we know that you call them Sandy and Crom. Just tell us their actual formal names.
Sure. So Crom is Castle Guard Riddle of Steel di Serafina, and Sandy is Oak Ridge Brown Eyed Girl.
Okay. Now, I love big dogs. But what are some things that people should know about a big dog before actually getting one?
This is one of them. They slobber a lot. So it's not too hot out today, but the bigger dogs you have, their lips, they slobber. They need a lot of exercise. They need room to move. They can't be apartments, things like that. Big dogs aren't made for those areas. Most of our St. Bernards actually live outside all year. They have cover, but that's how they stay in such good condition, because they are exposed to all the elements. We go to dog shows year round, so we want them to be regulated with the heat. So we've had 90-degree days out here, and she can go out and perform in that heat because she doesn't live inside. She's used to it. The other thing about the big dogs is that, like I said, socializing. If you get one of these dogs and you didn't take them out much when they were puppies, it's a little harder to control them when they get bigger. And most of the time they end up bigger than you. So you need to start young, and they need plenty of exercise, love, and attention. And the hardest part about them, though, is they don't live as long as some of those smaller dogs just because of their size. So that's something to take into account too.
Now, I know from showing horses that just because a horse is a nice backyard horse doesn't make it a good show horse. Can you tell us some qualities that you as a handler look at is this a show dog?
Yes. So first of all, we can make any dog a champion. So you can make any dog a champion that is worthy. You can take them to shows, get them through it. I just finished a dog this weekend that absolutely hates the show. She hates it. So I finished her championship, and now she's went home to her owners to be bred and live her life. Sandy, on the other hand, when she finished her championship, she's got the it factor in the ring. She's a showboat. She loves to do it. Her attention. She's a crowd pleaser. She can be difficult, but that's what makes her have that attitude about her, that she loves to be in the ring. So you take a good quality dog, you can finish their championship, but to push them to the next level and make them a special and campaign them, they got to have the attitude that they want to do it. And you do too.
Well, now what makes a good handler? I know that just from watching, a couple of dog shows like Westminster, sometimes an owner's a handler and sometimes it's a professional handler. But what makes a dog handler a good handler? Look at those
Well,
dogs. Look at those scary dogs.
so I grew up with St. Bernards. So I've learned to show them when I was young. I started out working for a professional handler. So I kind of got an edge. She myself is breeder owner handler. So we whelped her, we made her, we whelped her, I raised her, I showed her. And so this is my project. Crumb, on the other hand, I got him when he was 16 months old. And actually, when he started out with me, he was I would say a little aloof, but I was able to get him out of it pretty quickly just because I know how to kind of push dogs' buttons to get them to understand, hey, this is actually kind of fun. You get all this attention and you get food. So that's kind of how the handler needs to have it and kind of be able to read dogs. And you can see a difference. One handler can take a dog and they won't perform, and another one can take it in and it will. You got to kind of talk and have like a sense with the dogs.
Is there something from your knowledge of that sense with the dog that you could tell just the average dog owner handler that might help them with their dog?
Yes. So, I mean, I've been there myself. So when I started out, there are things, and I'm still learning. So as long as you understand that every time you go in the ring, you can use it as a learning experience and take away something to make yourself better for next time. When you're watching professional handlers, their dogs are already trained to stand, stack, and move around the ring. But handlers go that little extra mile when it comes to presenting themselves with the dog as one, because you want you to look like a solidified unit and not separate. So for the owner handlers, making sure that you practice being fluent with your dog and that you operate as one.
Well, tell me, before I ask you about COVID, let me ask you about Westminster, only because that's one show that we hear more about. There might be other shows important in the dog world, but we hear about Westminster. Tell us something that would surprise us about the, behind the scenes of a big dog show that would surprise us.
Maybe it looks like it's a lot of fun, and I do have fun, but I can't not explain how difficult it is to travel to New York City with dogs through the traffic, through the crowds, get them in the buildings, and keep the dogs completely happy as if they're going through their regular routine. It is no sleep because it's it is very hard. So those shows that you see with the spotlights and getting from one place to another, especially if you win before you see the dogs on TV, there are thousands of people surrounding these dogs, and they're used to it, but they're not used to it like they are in New York City. That's once a year, and that's it's a big deal, and it's a lot.
Has COVID changed dog shows, and are you able to still have them, and how has it changed them?
It absolutely, it rocked our world, honestly. In March, we were in Louisville, Kentucky. I was at one of the biggest dog shows of the year. There were around 3,000 dogs entered. The shows are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Every day is a new dog show. On Friday night, we were told that we needed to pack our stuff and be out by Saturday evening of the next day, and that the shows were canceled and we all had to go home. So that shocked us that they came in and closed the exposition center down and made us leave, basically. And then all shows after that have been canceled. And actually, my first shows back were this weekend in Canfield, Ohio. We had 4 days of shows. There were over 3,000 dogs entered. No spectators were allowed to come. It was just handlers and owners. We all had to wear masks, social distance. We had to show up to the ring, show and go. I drive a motorhome, so we just go back to my motorhome. Everybody did a great job this weekend. And I think we kind of set a standard that it can be done with what's going on now. Although some kennel clubs are still canceling shows, that we can do it as a fancy. The dog show world, we all fell flat on our face when this happened, and we will do anything we need to do to get back to showing regularly.
Today we are talking with Elizabeth Zaluski and her two best friends, Sandy the St. Bernard and Crom the Cane Corso. What is it like for a show dog at home when you're not showing? Is their life different than our family pet, diet-wise, exercise-wise, training-wise? What is their life like when they're not showing?
Yes. So basically, the hardest part is having the dogs at home, keeping them nutrition, exercise, bathing them weekly. Their nails need done weekly. And the easy part is actually going to the dog show and showing them. The hard part is maintaining them and keeping them in condition. Some of these dogs are ran on treadmills. Some of them are.
Kathleen will say that the game is actually the easy part. It's all the work for the game. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. It's like practice, and we haven't had any games.
How can you tell the dogs, you had kind of touched upon this, but how can you tell if a dog likes showing?
Basically, for me, it's, are they in tune with me, first of all? Are they able to completely focus on me when we're at the show? And then what is their attitude like toward other people and judges and exhibitors? And when they go around the ring, are they going around the ring with confidence, or are they going around just because you're making them do it? So you can tell if they have the it factor. It's kind of like somebody walking out and all eyes on them, red carpet. Some of those dogs act like that. And this one, she totally acts like that.
Now, do they know when they're in the ring, and at least like at Westminster, they might give like a 5th place, 4th place, I guess maybe an 8th place, 7th, 6th, and then the 1st place. Do your dogs know if they won 1st place? Do they know if they place or not?
Honestly, I believe they do. And that's because of the energy that I'm giving off to the dog. If I win, I'm very excited. They feed off of it, and they know we did great. If we didn't win or get what we wanted to, I still tell them good job, but I feel like they're a little disappointed, just like I am.
Now, are there easier breeds to show and more difficult breeds to show? So what would be an example of an easy breed to show?
An easy breed to show to me would be like a Doberman Pinscher. As long as they were socialized when they were young, they are very food motivated. And as long as you have food, they will do whatever you want them to do.
A difficult breed to show would be?
The St. Bernards, they're not as easy as people think they are. They can be slugs. Sandy isn't. She loves to fly around the ring. But I have some that, you're bending over and you got to hold their big heads up, and the Mastiffs and those other bigger breeds that weigh close to 200 pounds. If they don't like to do it and you're in the ring trying to get them to perform, it's a workout.
Well, now, let me ask you, I always ask this about athletes. How important is a coach to winning? How important would you say is the handler? How much of it is the dog and how much of it is the handler?
Well, one thing I like to say when I go into the ring is that I don't want any attention on myself, positive or negative. I don't want to be seen. I want to go in and do my best to hold out this dog and say, this is it. This is it right here. So the biggest,
you see a lot of handlers like that. They're dressed like very plainly. Is that to not draw attention away from the dog?
We don't usually, there aren't many people that, Crom's about to take a nap. There aren't many that go in and wear bedazzled, sparkly outfits. You'll see that at shows like Westminster, but otherwise, we really try to wear plain business suits that maybe match or kind of collectively match all the dogs that you're showing. But so you look professional and polished, but nothing that makes you, you don't want people drawing attention to yourself. You want it to show to your dog.
Now, how qualified, I know this was always a challenge showing horses, how qualified are the judges that are judging?
So it's a process for judges. Every breed that they get, they have to have so much experience. I can't just go and say I want to judge these breeds. You have to have whelped so many litters, been in the industry for a certain amount of time, and then each breed that you apply for, you have to do kennel visits, you have to do mentoring, you have to it's kind of a huge checklist that they have to go through, and then almost like study before they get their chance to judge the breed. And then when they do judge the breed, they get evaluated on how they place the dogs, and they get evaluated by field representatives that make sure that they're, picking dogs that should have won.
Ask you kind of in a lightning round. I'm going to ask you some questions that make you pick some favorites. Okay, whether you're showing or not, your favorite breed of dog.
The Cane Corso.
Because
because of this dog, Crom. He's set the tone. He is the best dog I've ever had, and I've had many.
Now, I just had this discussion the other day. Would you say that there's one dog in our life that's our heart?
Yes.
Yes. Your dog's favorite treat?
Hot dogs. Cheap 99-cent hot dogs.
Okay. Cooked or not cooked?
Not cooked.
Okay. Where does a dog now, Crom weighs how much?
Crom is 136.
Okay, so where does a 136-pound dog sleep?
He sleeps in my bed next to me on my sleep number bed with his own setting.
And if there was something that you wanted people to know about a breeder, what would that be?
Do your research. Check references. Make sure that these people are legit. If you're selling a puppy for $500, it's probably not a reputable breeder that are doing health testing, doing properly genetic breeding, really doing their research. You need to do your research too.
So how do we know that? So doing research would mean what?
When you go online, there are plenty of places where you can find positives and negatives on breeders. So if you find a name and it's a negative breeder, there's going to be negative comments or feedback all over the internet. If it's positive, you'll have references and you'll be able to do some research, and hopefully they put you on a waiting list and they ask you a ton of questions before they consider giving you or placing a puppy with you.
When I was about 5 years old when I insisted that our family poodle went to obedience school. Okay, so I remember starting young with obedience school. But do you think that how long does a practice session last? Like, I'm wondering if the average person tries too hard, too long. Like, what would an average length of a practice session be for you?
For me, when it comes to that, I would say 1 hour a week. You don't want to bore or tire the dogs or force this on them. Every time you want to start something new with them, you want it to be fresh, and you always want to end it on a good note. Otherwise, I do practice with the dogs. Every day somebody gets some type of work. Some of them get daily conditioning, but you don't want to tire them out. You want to do it, finish on a good note, and then add more to it next time.
Now, there's talk about horse whisperers. Are there such thing as dog whisperers?
I 100% believe that. When I have somebody helping me or working for me and I tell them, talk to the dogs, they look at me like I'm crazy. But you don't have to actually physically talk to them, but they feed off of your energy. So if you're upset, they're going to be upset. If you're happy, they're probably going to be happy. That energy runs right down the lead to the dogs.
Now, as we have a minute or two before we conclude, is there a favorite story you have, either from a dog or the owners or the handlers, that we would find surprising or entertaining about a dog show?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I would have to say, man, that's a really good one.
Now, your breeds don't have to get groomed as, or I shouldn't assume that, but sometimes, when you see these pictures of dogs that are being groomed, it's almost like a torture with the blowing them and the rollers and the this and the that. I mean, that's something that we don't think of as normal.
Well, I will say that when you see a St. Bernard and they're white and they're fluffy and their coats are all out and they're all trimmed up, she doesn't look like this all the time. So tomorrow she won't look like this. She won't be cleaned up. She'll be a pig. So keeping them clean and white, and when you're specialing these dogs, especially ones that you have to maintain their coat and condition them, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of product, it's a lot of work, and you need to bathe them and dry them to the skin every time you bathe them. A bath for her takes about 3 hours to get her from top to bottom, through and through.
That in alone is something that we would not have known. We all know that dog is man's best friend and woman's best friend. Today we learned a little about the behind the curtains of what happens when man's best friend competes in dog shows. Dolly Parton once said, "I look at myself like a show dog. I've got to keep her clipped and trimmed and in good shape." And now you know some of the things that involves, like a 3-hour bath, okay? I wanted to say thank you to our guests, our human guest, Elizabeth Saluski, a breeder and dog handler, and her Sandy, her St. Bernard, and relaxed over there is Crom, the Cane Corso, 136 pounds of him. This is Leslie Ungar. Thank you for joining us on Forum 360 with our global outlook with a local view. And thank you to our four-legged friends. And Elizabeth, thank you.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.